We are at chapter 12 of Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I want to start off to say that I might be shorter this week on my notes, but as I spent some time creating the notes, I was like, I could go on and on about a lot of things. So it may be true, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. For me, I lived most of my life in 14, 15, 20 miles plus out of town. Like right now, I'm living on a mountainside where everybody's got 20 plus acres. We don't even see our neighbors. I grew up that way. Certainly, there were short, brief periods of time in my life that I lived in more confined areas, if you will, where we're neighbor to neighbor, but very brief. So some of the stories that Mel shared, really I don't really connect to, and that's okay. I know why she did it. Like I can, after listening to the chapter and then reading it again, literally in the book today, I saw what she's addressing. And so let's dive in. Going through this chapter had me reflecting on how important it is to have, like what she talks about in several chapters, I believe, the proximity, timing in your life, and then the energy. I feel like those are really good parameters and foundational pieces that I will definitely apply in my coaching with clients when they are struggling with connections and relationships with others. I do believe proximity and timing in our lives, right? The chapters that we're going through, it makes it easier to have relationships with those and to have conversation and share a glass of wine or a glass of coffee or tea with those that are in that same era or that same chapter of their life. So I really do agree with that. She's kind of building on that foundation, those three pillars, the timing. So the proximity, right? The proximity would be where you're located. I know when I moved out of Alaska, and I shared this in another chapter, I lost a lot of friends. A lot of people disconnected, a lot of people unfriended me. And so I do believe that proximity definitely does. And she talks about that a lot in this chapter. I've seen that with my Allstate agent career as well. I had so many friends in that career. And I was told by several people when I first started talking about retiring and selling and moving on, oh, you're going to lose all these friends. And I didn't say no, well, that's not true, but I wanted to believe that in my mind. Like I was like, well, wait, and then it also kind of in a way made me stop and pause and think, oh, I don't want to lose that commonality. So proximity, maybe not so much with that, although I was in communities back then. We did have groups and so forth like that. So I guess proximity can be virtual, but timing as well is that we were all struggling with similar things. And so we could connect and bond and share what's working, what's not working. So I get that. Same with energy, that the third pillar that she talks about is how much energy do you have? There's definitely certain chapters in my life that I look back on and reflect on where I didn't have much bandwidth. I made the choice to start a business and make a family at the same time. Juggling that, looking back on that, I'm glad I did because my daughters are young. Well, I'm still young, I guess. So I feel like that's been a beautiful blessing. Although there were definitely a good, I would say 10 years that might have been a little difficult for them, being that mom was really busy. So proximity, being close to people, having those commonalities, going through the similar life challenges, the timing in your life and the energy are definitely three pillars that I'm going to really keep an eye out for in coaching conversations. And I think knowing those three pillars really helps detach from the meaning that we can create in our mind. And she talks a lot about that in this chapter. I do believe these three pillars are what she calls the bedrock, I believe, in the chapter of relationships. And it doesn't mean that when we enter into a different chapter or whatever, we don't alienate friends. We don't cut them completely off. It's just about maybe we pivot. If we don't have as much energy, we're going to shift that energy into those things that really uh, service, right? A lot of times I work with my clients and shifting and moving their energy to really empower them in their mental, emotional, and physical health first and foremost. And sometimes that does really limit them on their energy, right? So if they have kids or they're starting a career, running a business, sometimes there's things that have to be cut or pruned back to make sure that their mental, emotional, and physical health is also primary and foremost, right? So if I look at a client's week, we will place boulders in their schedule that really address those things: mental, emotional, physical health, and whatever it is that's really important in their life. Oftentimes that's your family, right? So those family needs, your business, your career, friendships, networking, uh, vacationing, whatever those things are, but that could be part of that mental piece as well. Now, I know I kind of touched on this. It's easy for our mind, right? We can call mind a lot of things. It's not an organ, right? Your brain is one thing, your mind is a whole nother thing. We can label it many different things. Sometimes I call it your ego. Can get in the way of creating meaning out of being ghosted. And she talks about that in this chapter, whether that being not texted, right? So maybe that radio silence, maybe you send a text, maybe you send another text, maybe you send another text. I often will talk to my clients whenever they're doing that, like texting, 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 texting. And what often happens is it's coming from an energy of neediness. I need you to respond to me. I need to hear from you. I need to be reassured that I haven't done anything wrong. I need reassurance that you're not mad at me. Oftentimes, when we have an agenda, we come from a place of fear, feeling scared, feeling upset, feeling like we're ghosted, feeling like we're not good enough, or whatever, all that flavor. We can come from needy energy, and it may not have anything to do with you. The mind, the ego, the saboteurs, the inner dialogue, the intrusive thoughts, whatever you want to call it, come into play and create stories, create images in our mind of what we've done wrong, or that we're bad, or that they no longer want to be our friends. And I would really encourage, if I'm working one-on-one with a client, to reel back and really ponder, what is the energy that you want to come from? How do you want to think? What do you want to believe? And what is it that you want to really tap into and become available to you? What energy do you want to exude towards this relationship? And a lot of times words will come up of, well, I want to feel at peace. I want to feel calm. I want to feel assured. I want to feel loved. I want to feel appreciated. I want to feel respected. I mean, some of those words could have an agenda attached to them, right? Feeling respected, feeling assured. That is outside in. So again, really looking at language, if those words are used, I'd ask them, what do these words mean to you? And sometimes they do mean inside out, but whenever it comes from outside in, I want to feel respected and assured. I want them to respond to me abruptly because that's how I respond to them. That's not coming from an empowering, positive energy. So we'd want to shift that again towards how you really want to feel. What is going to give you a good feeling? And when we really soak into that, when we really ground into the feeling that you want to come from, maybe it's feeling supportive, maybe it's feeling kind, calm, patient, loving. When we really get clarity on where we want to come from, we oftentimes will start to create images in our mind of what to do. When we really understand who we want to be, we'll understand what to do. A lot of times my clients will come to me, it's like, oh, how do I get them to respond to me? It's more about who you are being before the how. Because I won't know how to respond. It's not my life. It's not my friendship. It's not my relationship. So it's really about, who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? And when we get real clear on that, where you're coming from a place that feels really good, then the how becomes obvious. And a lot of times it's doing nothing, right? So if you're being patient and calm and peaceful, it might mean let them, right? Let them be. Let me be. They may have very valid reasons why they're not texting you back. Oftentimes my daughters won't text me back for days. I have found over the last year, both my adult children really like the texting where it's all three of us in a texting thread. They seem to do really well with that. They keep up with it pretty regularly, not every day. Sometimes, especially my youngest, she just went on a trip and she's just been flooding us with lots of pictures and lots of stories, and that's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed every moment of that. She went on a 10-day vacation with her boyfriend and his sister to Hawaii, actually. And so it was really a beautiful experience to actually hear from her every day. But there are periods of times where I won't hear from her for 2 weeks, and I put a red bubble on her phone. Like, I'll call her out of the blue. I know she won't answer. She doesn't have voicemail. I never leave, so I can't leave a voicemail. Or a bubble would be, red bubble might be a direct message to her, just like, hey, I was just thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. No agenda, no expectation. I'm not coming from needy, grabby energy. Hey, why are you not replying to me? Hey, why haven't I heard from you in 2 weeks? Right? Because I know that if I come from that energy, she's going to dread calling me. She's going to dread having to explain why she hasn't reached out to me. I know she's going to feel pressure. I know she's going to feel like maybe I'm disappointed in her. And that is not the come from I want to have, right? It's really, I want to feel loving and supportive and patient, and know that when I do have quality time with her, that I really cherish it. So again, our mind and our ego can really paint an ugly picture, but when we understand where our feelings come from, right? My feelings don't come from my daughter not texting me. That's not possible. It's not possible for my daughter to make me angry or upset or frustrated or annoyed or disappointed. That's my responsibility. I take ownership of my feelings. So I think that that's a huge shift that I really support my clients in understanding and grasping in their own lives and their own experiences. Now, I do share some of my stories with permission from time to time to help them see what I point to. What if there's a shift in proximity, timing, and energy? Well, like, we all have those shifts pretty much. I think most of us anyways. Well, actually, I think we all do. Proximity, maybe not so much if you stay in the same town your entire life, maybe the town that you grew up in. And there are people that do, stay in the same town, small town for their entire life. I do know that not everybody else does, right? So proximity might be an issue when other people move out of your town. Timing, again, is that chapter or phase in your life. Are you having kids? Are you empty nester? Are you running a business? Are you going up the corporate ladder? A lot of things with timing and energy. And I think that's really important when we're shifting in our lives, right? Being aware that when there are these shifts, like I got the warning of leaving Allstate, is like, oh, you're going to lose a lot of friends. Again, I didn't say anything when I received that notion. I just pondered it, and I was like, wow, maybe this isn't a good time. And I don't really want to lose those friends. But I will say the people that did remain connected, we do reconnect regularly. And in fact, there's one that I talk to every single week on Zoom, and it's just really wonderful. We share memories, share laughter, and I'm helping him and launching one of his businesses. But I do know that sometimes some of us have periods in our life where we're taking care of an ill child or an injured child or an aging parent. And again, that's a new chapter. That's when our bandwidth our energy really shifts towards, or maybe even an ill spouse. And then our energy is definitely consumed by that. And oftentimes friends and family don't understand that, right? Everybody is really thinking about themselves. And I see that so clear working with so many different types of people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your age, your gender, your culture, where you live. I work with people in Canada and the US. I work with people all over the US and abroad, and it doesn't matter. Everybody is really thinking about themselves. It's always me, 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 me. So it is funny how again, the ego and the mind and the stories start to create. And there's this sense of me. What about me? They are not texting me. They're not calling me. It's almost like a child, like an inner child in there, just me, me, me. And our mind, ego, saboteurs, whatever you want to call it, the inner voice is naturally quickly going to lean towards what might feel like a threat to ourselves, right? It will create this feeling of FOMO. It'll create that feeling of connection being threatened, that connection being lost. What do they think about me? I had coaching today with a couple of people, and that was a lot that kept coming up today. What are they going to think about me? Right? I'm going to change jobs, and what are they going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? And I'm like, let them think whatever they want to think. You can't control that. Most human beings, actually all human beings, cannot control their own thoughts. How are you going to control what they think? So let go of that. So it's really your life. You make your choices, and certainly you can weigh the choices, and we can sit here and get coaching through that. And that's what I did for one individual. For some reason, this last week, I swear my phone listens to me, and I might get some comments that, oh, it does. But this week I've had several pop up on my phone in multiple different spaces on the internet that are really poo-pooing on this book, saying that this book, the theory is stating or pointing people or telling people that to be a doormat and allow people to tread all over you and treat you poorly. I don't watch the whole videos because I don't subscribe to that. But it's interesting that I did see that in several different places and different people doing that. And to me, I think, I don't agree with everything that's in the book. And that's why I'm doing this book review, and not in a poo-poo kind of way, but in a way of, oh, I would have done this differently, and here's my perspective. And it's very much in a insightful way. And there's so much greatness in this book. And I love going through it in a slow way where I can share my takeaways and share my own experiences and what I see and what I'm learning. So again, not everybody's going to agree with everything in her book, but I think that some of these videos, some of these people might be riding on Mel's coattails, right? A way to get likes, comments, whatever. Some people like negative news, and truthfully, negative news gets more attention than positive, sadly. So I think it's just riding on Mel's coattails, which I think is a shame. And I don't believe that what she points to is telling people to be a doormat or allow people to treat you poorly. I don't believe that at all. I think that it's very well written, and I think there's some amazing lessons and learnings throughout the book if you're open to it. And when people say that, when I saw those videos, I'm like, I don't think they read the whole book, or they don't really understand. Maybe they're not open. Maybe they're not they're not really applying it or get the whole concept, and that's okay, right? Maybe they're not ready, and that's fine. In these chapters, I'm not going to, like this one, it's not really relatable to me. So again, at the beginning, I thought, oh, I'm not going to probably have a lot of notes, but I kind of do. So I'll ramble a little bit longer, and then I'll see if Lynn has anything to add. But I do say in a lot of my own content, take what's valuable and leave the rest, right? So sometimes I'll post on social media, I'll go into some groups, and I share some wisdom, some thoughts, always giving empathy and relating to the person, whatever they're struggling with. And then I usually put in parentheses, please, from this point forward, take what's useful and scroll past the rest. Slight warning, what I'm going to share with you might be a different perspective than what you're used to and what other people are saying. Because I'm in a lot of groups that are advice on relationships, and a lot of the people in the threads are telling these individuals, leave him, so many red flags, or leave her, leave them, they're terrible, they're narcissistic, they're this, they label them, and just say such awful toxic things, when we only know like 4 lines of their whole life, and it's usually from somebody that's very angry and upset. So it's just like, how could you tell somebody to leave them when they have 5 kids and no job and no car, no driver's license? It's wild to me. I believe that the concentrated message we could distill it down, the message for this entire book is to take ownership and responsibility for your feelings. Take ownership and responsibility for how you really want to feel, and understand where your feelings come from. Understand how your feelings are generated. They're generated from the inside out. They're generated internally. They're not generated from that person that's ghosting you. They're not making you angry or upset or frustrated. They don't have that power. Radio silence cannot make you angry. It just doesn't. Just like somebody in traffic tailgating you can't inject feelings of upset or angry or rage or being upset at all. I'm trying to not cuss so I don't have to rate this on YouTube as explicit. So I think it really points to this book in such a light way. She's pointing to emotional maturity in a light way. She's giving a simple tool with 2 words, right? I have tools. I'm going to write a book and I don't have it distilled down to 2 words. I have it distilled down to 5. So I don't have 2 words. She has it down to 2 words. Technically, I guess it's 4, but so I'm close. But you know, I think it's emotional independence, it's emotional leadership, it's emotional agency, it's emotional trust, it's learning where your feelings come from and standing in that power. It's no longer allowing someone else in this world to dictate how you feel. I appreciate her being honest and vulnerable in this chapter. Of course, she is throughout the whole book. She did say, even in the chapter she leads off, that I was horrible, I think is what she said, and how she looks back on how she behaves and acted, and you know, and she felt excluded at the time, felt cut off, felt, you know, of course, all the FOMO and all the other things that she felt. And at the time, she was working off of what she knew. She was working off what appeared to be real to her, even though it was all thought created. The fact was, is they didn't reach out to her. That's it, right? She added layers on layers and layers and layers of meaning. And look at how she treated herself and others as a result of that. She goes in depth on that in the chapter. But again, people work from what they know, what they understand, and what her inner dialogue was convincing her of. Okay. And she was getting reinforcement of that negative story in her mind because it was playing over and over and over and over again in her mind, like hypnosis. It's like a record playing over and over again. She doesn't talk about it in the book, but I bet you $1 million it was being reinforced by someone that she's close to. Right? So it's when you go and share a glass of wine or coffee or tea with one of your girlfriends or somebody you care about, and you're going to say, oh, you're not going to believe it, Janet hasn't texted me back in 2 weeks, and I could see on Facebook that she's having all these parties and she's not inviting me. Well, of course your friend is going to go, yeah, that meanie, she's been so mean to me too, she's not inviting me either. And so that is colluding. That's making it look bigger. It's giving you more stories and more images in your mind and making it appear to be more and more real. And that keeps you stuck. That keeps you in that illusion that that friend can make you angry, upset, frustrated, whatever. That's not where your feelings come from. And I know that culturally we're taught to believe that. I think we're taught to believe that in school, like when you get an A+, you're good, and when you get an F, you're bad. We're taught, and there's a feeling associated with those 2 letters that mean nothing. They're actually very neutral. They have no meaning attached to them. We have created meaning in our heads. One is good and one is bad, and everything in between, A, B, C, whatever, D, right? That's not true. So this is, again, a lot that I work with my clients to help them really stay grounded and see things for how they really are. Now, I will say that we human beings like to learn through pain. We learn through heartburn, heartache, heartbreak, and this is the reality, right? So we learn when we feel pain. And she said later in this chapter that I think she reunited with those neighbors years later. I think she didn't say it, I don't think explicitly, but I think there were some apologies made. I think that there were some forgiveness offered. And, us humans were messy, right? I think all of us can think of a relationship or friendship where we've lost connection and we may have been a part of that. So sometimes we do things that make sense to us at the time, at the moment, right? Because we're working off of what we know and what we understand at the time. And it might be emotional, right? Again, it's thinking and believing and pointing fingers and blaming. But later on, when we get greater emotional intelligence, we realize I was in the wrong, right? And what power is that? We connect with other human beings at a deep level when we can admit that we were at fault, that we could have done better, that we showed up in a way that wasn't now. Now what we know and what we understand was inappropriate or wrong. Okay. So we do connect better with human beings. And sometimes people are not going to accept an apology, and that's okay. They're not ready. They may never be ready. They may be the type of person that's not open to that, and that's okay. Right. So, but again, I think we all have a relationship that we could fall on our sword, make amends. And again, they may not accept that apology, and that's okay. I do appreciate her going on and explaining that she couldn't control her feelings. She said that a couple of times on that page. And I can think of many times in my life that I felt as though I couldn't control my feelings. And now knowing what I know and the studies that I've done, the more we try, the word is try, when we try to control our feelings, the more resistance our mind and ego and saboteurs or inner voice are going to resist, the bigger it gets. Because in our mind, or our brain, in fact, actually sees danger. It feels as though we're going to lose that connection. We're going to lose that, be kicked out of our tribe, in essence. Our old brain sees it as a danger. So the more we try to control our feelings, the greater and sneakier that inner dialogue and that inner voice is going to get. I hear that quite a lot with brand new clients. Like I try to control my thoughts, and I try to control how I feel, and I just can't. It's getting worse and worse, and I'm getting more anxious, and I'm getting more stressed out, and I just got to control this. I've got to control this. Well, first off, we can't control our thoughts. We just can't. And our thoughts are connected to our feelings, and our behaviors are connected to our feelings. So the more we try to control, the greater you're going to see it. For instance, if I told you right now, don't think of a banana. Don't think of a banana. Don't think of me eating a banana. Don't think of me offering a bundle of bananas. Are you thinking of bananas? Don't think of biting into a freshly cut lemon. Don't think about a lemon, a really sour, salivating lemon. Don't think about it. As I say that, I can tell that my mouth is watering. So when our brain we see images, so we can't control what we're thinking as much as we want to. We can learn to command our thoughts to work for us rather than against us. We can also have a daily intentional practice in shifting what we focus in on. We can have a daily practice of being very aware, consciously aware of what thoughts don't serve us, and being compassionate towards those thoughts that don't serve us, and pivoting towards thoughts that do serve us. We can create a new neural pathway and a habit of thought that empowers us. A million different ways of saying what I just said. What I do believe, and I have seen in my own life and with many of my clients, is when you understand how your mind and brain work and your consciousness, you can completely change how you experience your life. I'm not saying that your life is going to completely change, even though I have witnessed that too. What I am saying is that you'll experience everything moment to moment differently. But that does take skill. It does take time, practice, patience, and somebody like me to really help you understand where your feelings are created. I also will point out that she said, I think when this whole neighborhood thing happened, she was in her 30s and 40s. And I think she's probably in her 50s now. I think I actually heard, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've heard of recordings that she says she's like 50th birthday or whatever, but I don't know how old those recordings are. So I'm not really sure how old she is. But I will think, my thought was when I read that, is how she behaved in that neighborhood might have been before she did a lot of personal development and self-improvement and internal work and emotional development. I'm not sure. She didn't declare that in that chapter that I could see. And again, we can't control our feelings, but all we can do is learn, right, from the pain, right? Whenever I feel pain, emotional pain, I lean in. I know that there's something there that I can work on, right? Emotional pain is often labeled as a trigger. So when you have a trigger, something that sends the feelings throughout your body, wherever it is, everybody's different, and different situations might give you a different surge of pain. I know that when I lean in and I get like my ears opened up and I almost like slow time down and I become very consciously aware, I know that I can step in and see what my thoughts are. Because sometimes I am not aware of what thought is creating a feeling in my body, but I do know when I feel something off in my body and I'm drifting towards a feeling I don't want to feel. And sometimes when I say drift, it might be immediate. When I'm moving into a feeling that I don't want to feel, I know that it's an alert, it's an alarm for me to slow down and become aware. What can I learn here? How can I hear my inner dialogue, be very consciously aware, and choose a new direction? Choose versus letting my autopilot reaction to whatever my thoughts are that are just oftentimes repetitive, right? So somebody tailgating me used to be something that triggered me. Not that I ever did anything reckless or crazy, but I would sometimes get upset in the car, especially if I'm alone. I might blurt something out, very rude, very obnoxious. And that's not the energy I want to be in. That's not the person I want to be. Again, never did anything and never will. I just know that that's not how I want to live my life, because what could happen is I could get very upset and then bring it home. And I don't want to drag that energy into my house. But what I do know is I have the ability internally to know that that driver behind me is probably on autopilot, driving really close to me and not consciously aware, just cruising through life, not really paying attention and driving way close to me. I know that they're not able to make me feel threatened or unsafe. I have a choice. I have control and can dictate how I feel and make a choice in that moment that has me feeling safer. And oftentimes it's just pull over. So what is interesting is that she can now look back on how she treated herself and her family. She went into that in a little bit of detail in the book, how she treated her family very poorly. As a result, she became real. When she was in the midst of it, she was really attached to the story. And and really the thick of the fact that they were excluding her, they were cutting her out. And when we think about that, like even in reading it, I think that we create images in our mind of being excluded and maybe even reflect on when we have been in our own life. And it really, you can get a sense of how she might have felt. And that's how our brains are wired. That's how we go to a movie and cry at a movie, right? When it's a really well done movie and you feel pulled into the storyline and you get sucked in and you get emotional, Yeah, I mean, a well done movie will trigger those images in your mind, and it might connect to some experiences you've had in your own life. And what I will say is, this is all common and what I work with my clients, common issues with my clients, with all human beings. When I first started working with clients, I really realized with every single client, they taught me something, right? They taught me a lot, and really understanding my understanding and what I teach at a deeper, higher level, right? I can apply what I have learned in my own life. And of course, I learn tremendously. And I always suggest that with everybody. Whenever you learn something from me, you've got to go out and apply it in your own life. It's experiential. You have to do this. You could take my word for it, but it's just going to be like reading another book. Oh, I read that book. It was good. But unless you apply concepts in your own life, you really don't understand it. You understand it at a logical level, and you don't have it memorized. That's why I think that she has 2 words, let them, to make it super simple and easy. And also too, and a good point is, if we give anyone the power in our life, anyone, it could be a boss, it could be our romantic partner, it could be our partner in life, if we can give our kids or anyone or anything, could be even money or circumstance or a job title, if we give anything the power to make us happy, we're also giving them the power to make us sad. So when you really understand that your feelings don't come from external things, people, places, things, situations, or circumstances, you stand in your power. You're able to move through life, because life is going to give you lemons. Life has its twists and turns, and it has its grief, and it has its sadness and its sorrow. And when you understand where your feelings come from, you can move through those experiences rather quickly without falling into a deep, dark depression. That's my belief. To believe that other people are responsible for you, how you feel, is a huge burden. It's a huge expectation of other people. So again, if someone praises you, well, then that makes you happy, right? So again, if you're a person that needs validation, you need to be praised, you need to be told you look pretty, you need that, you crave that, you want that, you don't understand where your feelings come from. And you're giving that power away to someone else. You're giving that power away to another human being that may not be able to praise you enough to make you feel good enough. And I feel like the worst feeling on the planet is feeling not good enough. If someone criticizes you and you feel hurt, right, then what, right? Then you're giving your power away to someone else's thoughts and opinions that they may not even have meant it to be a criticism. You're taking it as a criticism. You're giving your power away to another fragile human being that's saying random things that they may not even mean. So it's really about, again, knowing where your feelings come from. And again, kind of what she talks about in this book, if you believe that if someone ignores you, you feel rejected, you're, again, a victim, or what I like to say is you're a puppet and they are your puppet master. And they don't even know it, likely, right? Or even if they did know it, that's a heck of a lot of power to have over another person's life. I believe it's baked into our culture and our society that they made me feel this way. I hear it all the time. My ears are in tune to those words, or I will be happy when I have this job, or this fall in love, or I have kids, or I have this house, or I have this boat. I will be happy when, or they make me feel happy, sad, mad, glad, whatever. I hear that all the time. And to me, it breaks my heart, because they're giving their power away and they don't understand it's suffering. So what is empowering is to reclaim your emotional independence. Your feelings are not derived by what someone else does or doesn't do. No one can inject feelings into you. It's not where your feelings come from. Your feelings are from inside of you. They're your own thoughts, your own stories, your own judgments, your own views, your own rules, your own standards, your own expectations, your internal beliefs, your interpretations. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. And I could go on. I have more words to describe it, but it's all thought. Really, if you really want to get down to it, it's pure thought. So when you really understand what you're thinking moment to moment, which takes a lot of energy, and your ego and your mind are going to fight and resist you. But if you really hear what's going on in your brain, consciously and non-consciously, you'll understand in yourself, step in your own power, and you'll be able to create a life that you love. So when you realize this at a higher level than intellectually, like if you read, the book, check the box, say, I read the book, it's a great book, I loved it, whatever, give it a review, and then you move on with life and never apply it, you understand it intellectually. And you might be nodding your head, yeah, I've read the book, yeah, I've read the book. That's just pure agreement. But when you actually embrace, let them, and apply it in your own life and see like, oh yeah, so-and-so is not texted me back and it's been 3 days. Well, I'm going to let them be. And maybe in another 3 days, if I haven't heard from them, I'll call them or maybe check in on them and make sure that they're okay, or drop them off some soup. Right? That's not exiling people out of your life, and that's not blocking people out of your life, and that's not being a jerk. That's not being a doormat, or whatever else is being said out there. So you're no longer handing your power away over to something that's very neutral, right? They haven't texted you for 3 days. There's no feeling in that. There's no emotion in it. It's just pure fact. And 8 billion people on the planet would agree that your friend hasn't texted you in 3 days. And we could translate it in how many other languages are in this world. It's a fact. It has no emotion attached to it. So what I find with new clients of mine is they're on the emotional roller coaster in their life. Right? They're just being pushed around and shoved around all over this roller coaster, and believing that other people's moods, other people's energy, disapproval, approval, thumbs up, a like or a dislike, or the comments on social media are creating all these feelings in them. Just like some people say, oh, I don't go on social media because it's so toxic and everybody's so mean. That's not true. It's your perception, your judgment. You're projecting on others. So lead your emotional experience. You're one thought away from experiencing your life totally different. You're one thought away from feeling different. You're one thought away from being wiser, smarter, learning from each experience. And the best part is when you stop needing other people to behave a certain way or do a certain thing or follow your rules that are in your head that you expect everybody to follow, you start to feel really good. You become free, you become calm, you become magnetic. People actually want to be around you. But when you're all stuck up in your head and overthinking, overanalyzing, and woe's me and poor me, people are going to be repelled by you. And some people might think me explaining this seems super simple and not possible. And I get that. I get that. That makes sense. You're not ready. You're not ready to see this, and that's okay. It's unfamiliar. Again, it's baked into our culture. We see it I hear it on movies. I hear it in music. I hear it all over the place. I hear it in language. I even say it once in a while. I'm like, oh, like I saw a tree. This has been a while, but I saw a tree that I absolutely love, a dogwood tree, I think, flowering, beautiful tree. And I was like, oh, that tree makes me happy. Oh, where did that come from? That's not true. Some might say that this sounds hard. Well, guess what? It will be hard. Your language is power. Your language is going to give me a peek in the window of your brain and how you're experiencing your reality. So when things feel different or unfamiliar, they're hard. So guess what? You're going to stay in your comfort zone and you're not going to change. And that's okay. It's your life, your journey. Good luck. Some that work with me find out how simple it is to apply what I teach and what I've touched on today. And I have so many beautiful, amazing stories. So many people that have completely changed their lives, that they're no longer living their life at the hands of another person. So imagine waking up every day, no matter what happens today, I'm going to decide how I feel. Today, I'm going to decide to feel at peace. Today, I'm going to decide, no matter what happens, to feel calm. And I believe that's Mel's message throughout the book. And she states it very differently. And that's okay. She even states that she didn't know how to deal with her feelings back in that neighborhood when she started getting exiled, or when she moved. I'm not really sure which happened first. She didn't know how to deal with her feelings. Again, I don't know where she was on her self-awareness and inner work and her personal development journey. I don't know where she was. I do love a lot of Mel's work. I don't agree with all of it, and that's okay. We come from different understandings. I don't believe that we're taught how to deal with our feelings. I heard something actually on something I was listening to, waiting for 4 o'clock to come along, that said, I forget the documentary I was listening to, but it talked about how we were growing up in an era. She's a little bit older than me, but she grew up with a family that didn't tell her how to deal with her emotions. And same, right? I wasn't allowed to have emotions. I wasn't allowed to be overly happy or overly sad. I wasn't allowed to talk about my feelings. So I think that we are conditioned in our childhood to get on that emotional roller coaster. We don't know how to handle these surges, these triggers, these emotions that happen in our body. And we have this illusion that other people make us feel a certain way. When we get cut in line at the grocery store, we feel upset or angry or frustrated. I would never do that. Might be in your head. You may not say that, because I wouldn't. I might give them a stink face or a stink eye. How dare you? I don't know. Nowadays, I'm just go ahead. I would really rather you go first, because it seems like you're on an emotional roller coaster. I want you to use that in your language in the next couple of days. It seems like they're on an emotional roller coaster, right? They're riding the highs and the lows and ups and the downs. She does go in and explain. I'm almost done, Lynn. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 4:48. I'm almost done. She goes on to explain that let them isn't excluding people. It's not shutting people out. Again, going back to the video of people poo-pooing on this book. She's not suggesting to alienate people. She's not suggesting shutting people out. That's not what she points to. And I never believed that. I feel like it's almost like she knew it was going to happen. I don't know, from her own wisdom or from her, the people helping her write the book, her daughter or whoever, takes credit for helping her for whatever reason it's brought. And I know that she talked about the let them theory way before she wrote the book. In fact, she had such a great encouragement from so many people that she did. I also got an email that she wrote another book recently, published another book. So maybe her publisher encouraged her to put all that in there. I don't know. But what I believe she points to is emotional freedom throughout the book. I'm also in a lot of communities that really encourages colluding, right? Pointing out what's right and what's wrong. I kind of talked about that earlier, like, oh, leave him. He's so many red flags. But all that does is reinforce you being in victimhood. All that does is reinforce that he makes me feel sad, lonely, pitiful, worthless, whatever. Now, I'm not saying someone that's emotionally, physically, and verbally abusive should do that. And I think that's why some of the poo-pooing is happening, that there are situations where people are in an abusive situation, and certainly there's resources, hopefully, in their area that they can leave. but finger pointing and blaming on a normal, general daily situation, right? You know, I think I used the example last week of my husband leaving floss on the bathroom counter, blaming him for ruining my day because he left the floss on the counter. You know, that's extreme, but it's just an example. That's creating suffering in me, right? So being in friendships does require flexibility, requires adaptability, requires being open to forgiveness, being open to apologizing. It does require molding, adapting, pivoting, changing with the times. Because life is going to throw us lemons and bananas. You're thinking about lemons and bananas. And it's really learning to know, when am I making this about me? Right? That's something that I'm hyper vigilant about. Like, how am I making this about me? And my husband did something this weekend, and I did. I made it about me. Why did you close the window? I had to apologize. Let's just put it that way. But make sure to look at the facts. The facts are what 8 billion people on the planet would agree upon, and removing the emotions. What are the facts? This usually will clear up a lot of the emotional, muddy waters, versus looking at emotional reasoning, right? So we want an emotional independence, emotional agency, emotional trust in yourself, right? Because I'm really about, how can I lean into a good feeling? How can I have a good feeling today? Again, waking up and choosing how I want to feel for the day. It could be 1 to 10 words. I usually choose 1 to 10 powerful, positive words. And if I feel like I'm shifting a little bit throughout the day, I'm going to go, how do I want to feel? And reflect back on what I wanted my day to feel like at the beginning of the day. And seeing that our circumstances are very neutral. But as silly humans love to project our insecurities and make it about ourselves. And I too, as Mel talks about it, I do appreciate and love it when someone reaches out to me from the past. I find it to be fun. I like to reminisce. I like to share stories. You know, some stories I had totally forgotten from people from my past. So my door is always open. Anyways, Lynn, do you have anything to share? I cannot believe I rambled for 43 minutes. I was like, this chapter doesn't have a lot, but a lot of what I said was my perception.
Just a second.
You're on. I hear you.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Where is there? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Is it just you and I?
Yeah, I had several text messages that
Oh,
people are going to show up late if they were going to be able to make it. So yeah,
oh.
four people texted me, and then somebody RSVP'd just a little bit ago, and Kim, and she hasn't been here in a couple of weeks. So I really was excited to see her again, but thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I liked this chapter and the one before it, the both, about friends and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and where you like the proximity and just common activities. And like she was talking about when her kids were real small and how easy it was because it was just easy. I mean, it was not easy, but it was easy to have relationships.
Yeah. There was so much to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Our kids are losing teeth at the same time, or going
Uh,
to the same sports.
Same schools. Just it was a lot easier. And it is harder, I think, after your kids are gone, you have to make another leap.
Yeah.
Be open. So, but I think that uh, in the counseling that I've had in the past, if I can articulate this without going into ad nauseum detail, um, was to, if you, but if you, instead of, like, if you think somebody's ghosting you or there's a situation, you can always ask them, hey, is everything okay? Because I used to, like, if somebody didn't look at me and say hello, I might go, oh, I wonder what I did. And then I was kind of like, there's nothing I did. So, and I've tried to teach this to my sister too, is a lot of times has nothing to do with you. So
Yep.
this, I felt like I wrote this book before the book came out in that part. Because, but living up here, there was a woman that I said, hey, it just seemed like this conversation we had didn't go kind of how I thought it was going to go. So I was wondering if he could sit down. And she started yelling at me and crying and got up and left. And she hasn't spoken to me since. So, but what I did with this book is I've had to let her go. This has nothing to do with me.
No.
It's her.
A
And
lot of times people, especially if they're screaming and yelling, to me,
yeah,
it's a big sign that they're really suffering.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot going on in their life that's heavy, and they don't have the bandwidth or the energy, right? One of the three pillars is
yeah,
energy, right? So
yeah.
if they have a lot of heavy things that they're dealing with in their life, and heavy could be things that they haven't exposed to you, right? They could even have a
Right,
medical issue themselves, or
right,
someone
right,
they
right, right.
love or care about, or their pet passed away, or
Yes.
especially if
Right.
it's over a long period of time. To me, I've met some really bitter people in my life. And they use, anger or striking like that in a way to protect themselves, and make more space, and honestly isolate themselves. And what's sad is I have been in coaching sessions with bitter, angry people, and they didn't know they did that. They didn't know that they shut
Oh,
people out, and they didn't know
yeah.
that it was just a protection thing. They didn't real and they find themselves isolated and alone and sad, and they're like, this isn't what I wanted. What I wanted was for them to get the message that not right now. Don't you see that I'm hurting and I'm in pain?
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't come out that way, because it's amazing that we can even communicate as human beings, to be
Yeah.
truthful and to be honest with you. And I will say something, and like I'll say, um, well, that's a beautiful tree. And another human being can go, that's an invasive plant that's killing the earth. Like, it's like we see things differently from our life experiences. And even cows and pools, there are people who get really upset when you talk about cows and pools, because it's destroying the ozone layer, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes it's what we're really consuming, news or whatever. And I don't know. There's just so many, we're so complicated and complex. And
Right. Right.
yeah,
So this book has been helpful in that way. It's just I have to let some of this stuff go and invest my time in people who who I mean, they're not like well, there's two or three of them now. But there's other people that I might want to spend time with. I can just let that go.
yeah,
Other than, because there's another one that lives way out there on the other side over there, who for some reason, I have no idea. She just suddenly is really, really angry at me and I don't know what I did. And so I'm somebody who well, let's just talk about it. But she as well
yeah,
doesn't even acknowledge that I exist. She won't even look at me when she drives by. So I think there's people up here going through, again, we don't have a lot of proximity because we live so far apart, since it's just you and me talking.
yeah,
Um, I wouldn't talk about this, but I think that people choose to live up here because they like sort of the being on their, to themselves. And
yeah,
so in that way, I don't know if in my way of seeing people, it's because I'm pretty open and friendly, but there are people up here who don't want to be that.
yeah,
So I gotta let them be the way they want to be.
yeah.
So it's hard though.
Yeah, it's, from what I can see from my perspective, is there's colluding. There has to be colluding.
I think there is some, yeah, yeah.
There's so
I always
there's
forget about that.
There's a build up, right? Rah, rah, drink the Kool-Aid. And then there's this one individual that is always there, that's a very strong personality.
Uh-huh.
And there's this power that's generated and created in this buildup before every time there's a meeting,
Yeah.
and they are united. And there's
Yeah.
power in numbers, and there's power in a belief that they are right. There's so much power in that, because when you
Yeah.
hear something over and over and over again, you go, oh, well, maybe I saw something the other day, the earth is not round, it's actually oval or something. I don't know. Don't quote me. I don't want to start rumors, but it was
Right.
just so funny. I just laughed because I was like, see, the planet is not flat or round, you know?
Yeah.
But when you hear, if I heard that over and over and over again, the planet's oval, there's no way for me to know. I'm never going to go up into space and look down and have proof and evidence of it. And
Right. Measure
how do
it.
we know if pictures are even accurate, right? So
Right.
when you hear anything over and over again, you start to believe. That's why I don't have the news. I haven't had the news in probably 8 years. I don't want stuff being hypnotized to me. I want to have my own emotional independence. I want to create and formulate my own thoughts, opinions, views, and judgments that serves me. Me, right? So so I find that that's my assumption. And assumptions oftentimes are wrong.
Yeah.
But what I do think is that in this situation, being that I'm also involved in it as well, is I believe that there is a united front and there's colluding.
Uh-huh.
Not saying that's wrong or bad or good or right or whatever. It's just that's the only way that this could be occurring over such a long period of time, and how there's such a charge in the room. You can feel the energy, right? It's
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
closed off, right? It's not open at all, and very, you're wrong and we're right. It's the
Right.
only way that could occur is if there's I don't want to say meetings, but there's something that's building that up to build that confidence up to, and being closed, right? Because truthfully, it really, in order to be effective, is they've got to be open-minded to take in feedback, to take in thoughts, take in new ideas, new concepts. Not
Mm-hmm.
to say that you would do them all, but I mean, everybody here has skills and talents and
Oh my gosh.
it's not being utilized. And
Yeah.
why? Because it's closed, right? It's
Right.
not welcoming.
And now the communication is affected. You can't communicate unless you go to that one little weird website where it feels like they're talking to you when they're talking to the whole, that closure of communication is really,
I
I,
can see why they did that though. I can see
yeah.
why. Um, and that's something too that I work with my clients in too, is being open-minded yourself, right? We don't want to fall into the trap of being closed-minded. So put yourself in their shoes. They've
Yeah.
been told many a times that they're doing things wrong. Many
Mhm.
times. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And I would probably, with knowing my personality, I probably would start building walls, and I would too. I'm not saying that's right. What I'm saying is they have been blamed and finger pointed, and that gets old. And so I have communicated many times to a certain individual, like, what are they doing right these days? Just name one thing. What are they doing right? What's one good thing? And every conversation I bring that up. What's one good
That's
thing
good.
that they've been doing?
That's a really good idea. Yeah. That's a very good idea. So
Because not
anyway,
everything they're doing is bad or wrong,
no,
or
no,
it's not.
it's, I guess it's just probably patterns when you start seeing a pattern and then it,
Yeah, but we're not going to communicate if we're coming in with a laundry list of all the things they're doing wrong. They're
no,
not. I wouldn't. Just like if removing the community out of it,
yeah,
any relationship,
yeah,
I came knocking on your door and I'm like, okay, Lynn, I have these 20 things that you're doing wrong. or you'd close the door on me. You'd be like, go away, you crazy lady.
It's an excellent point. Excellent point. So yeah, you got to find, well, anyway, tomorrow we're going to get dust abatement, so it'll be good. That's a good thing.
Is it going by your house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So, this is totally off the subject, but it's 5 o'clock.
I'm gonna
Do you,
stop the recording really quick.
okay.